Donna Loughlin is an award-winning storyteller working with visionaries changing the future. As we prepare to delve into a conversation on the topic at hand, creating your authentic story as an entrepreneur, here's an exciting twist. First, let us tickle the brain of our guest. So, Donna, get ready for a rapid fire round of random words. I'm going to mention a few, and I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. Are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let the confetti fall.
All right, here comes the first word. Curiosity.
My entire life.
Invention.
Oh, the automobile.
Future.
Optimistic.
Book.
The one I'm writing.
Movie.
That's a hard one. I'm going to go with my first impression in my mind that gods must be crazy.
And then food.
Fish tacos.
Success.
In progress.
Money.
Never enough, but we also don't need it.
Next one is universe.
I hope it behaves better tomorrow.
Last one is fame.
I don't need it. But my clients do.
Interesting, Donna. And thank you so much for participating in the first rapid fire round. We have one more waiting towards the fag end of this episode. So, first of all, thank you so much. And folks, welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, where we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place through valuable discussions that add value not only to your life, but also to your career. And thank you so much for tuning in. Donna, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Donna, let's get started with our conversation. And here comes my first question. So can you share your own journey of becoming an award-winning storyteller and working with visionaries? So what actually inspired you to pursue this path?
You know, it started really, really young. I grew up in San Jose, California, which was, now part of the pin drop known as the Silicon Valley. But before the Silicon Valley became what it is known for today, the tech and innovation, it was an agricultural community. And the agricultural community was making a transformation. Agriculture continues to be a huge economic component of the California, from the Central Valley all the way up to the Napa regions. But my father owned a printing business, and his brothers were news reporters. And so I spent many of my childhood, days after school and in the summers going to the printing business and going out on assignments with my uncles. So by the time I was 8 years old, I was news reporting. I was going out into the community with them and interviewing. I would go to the early makings of, what was Hewlett Packard and some of the early defense and technology companies. But I'd also go with them to the local bakery and, to any of the local community stories that were breaking. And I was very shy, always curious and precocious. But my uncles finally challenged me and said, instead of asking the question, ask the questions, you need to start asking the questions. And so that's when I realized that I just loved being able to talk to people, and it got me out of my shell of being shy, because when you start having a conversation, the world opens, right? And there's two things that I think that are equalizers when it comes to engagement. One is food, conversations with people over food, always establish a connection, a memory, and some form of collaboration. And the other is just pure storytelling. My grandmother was a great storyteller. She came from Ireland, and I used to sit up on her lap and she would tell me stories. And I remember asking her when I was about 6 years old, where is the book? And she pointed to her head, because these are stories that had been passed down to her generation over generation by the fireplace, but, as a child growing up. And so there were a couple of connections happening at the same time between, my grandmother and my uncle. So I was kind of surrounded by that. And then my father would make sure that every week we would go to the library, and I would get stacks of books, and I would promise that those stacks of books would last me for a whole week. They usually lasted me 2 or 3 days.
Quite an interesting stuff. And that brings me to the next question. Like, you work with visionaries So can you share with our audience maybe a highlight a particular visionary or a project that particularly impressed you with their approach to storytelling as well as innovation?
Well, I think there's a couple of things I need to add before that. So after high school, I went off to school to study journalism and communications. And when I graduated from high school, I finished both my high school and my first undergraduate degree simultaneously. And so when I graduated from high school, I already graduated with a degree. And then I went to UC Berkeley and I studied journalism and communications. And I wanted nothing to do with the Silicon Valley. After college, I went to New York, I went to Chicago, and then I went to work in London as a reporter. And then I came back out to the Silicon Valley for my master's degree, again at UC Berkeley, and interviewed a Silicon Valley executive for an article that I was writing. And at the end of that interview, he told me that he wanted his head of marketing to hire me. And I thought, well, I'm not for hire. Actually, I'm a reporter, and I'm never going to change my passion in what I do. Well, needless to say, within a matter of weeks, I ended up going to work for a company called 3Com Corporation. And 3Com, people would know it for the Palm Pilot, and before that, it was networking and infrastructure. So that was my introduction to the Silicon Valley. Then after that, I worked for a number of companies with corporate, and then I did a series of IPOs during the dot-com bubble, and then eventually I formed my own business. So the last 20 years of running my business, I have launched more than 500 companies and have done more than a dozen IPOs. And the part of the innovator story that I personally love is the founders' passion of that moment when they decided to leave their job, sell their car, trade their cat, for a dog, or whatever they needed to do, whichever, how I say, commitment and struggle to lead with their dream. And so I actually created a whole series called Before It Happened, which is a podcast. It was designed for that moment before it happened. What was that moment in time where you decided? And so I had the same conversation years and years ago with Steve Jobs when I was a reporter going in to see Steve Jobs. And I was a college student at the time in training. And I was dressed up in a suit, and I was, felt very, very empowered. And I had my questions listed, and I was ushered into a room, and he was sitting at this small round table with his feet up on the table with no shoes on. But I thought, wow, I got dressed up for the. And I didn't know if I was supposed to take my shoes off or keep them on or how formal, but I thought, no, I'm going to stay formal and be present. And he was eating cherries, and we started the conversation with, the valley, the fruit, and how apple was named Apple. And it was once called the land of heart's delight, which is, apricots and cherries and grapes and, everything was, and figs were just abound in the valley. And so that kind of gave me the courage and understanding of, when you have a conversation with somebody who's so brilliant and who's so, we'll put them in a category of genius, right? And a futurist, there's an opportunity to find out, behind the scenes, why. And that's curiosity to me. Why? Why did you decide to create, X? So I've had that conversation with many. So some of the companies that I work with that you can Google and see their existence are like Nightscope Robotics, which is a law enforcement, security and safety robot. A very interesting company founded by William Santana Lee, who came from the automotive industry, was a Ford executive for many years before he ventured. His, story when I first met him was so enchanting, is that, again, he was willing to put everything on the table in order to embark on making America safer, keep communities safer, cities safer. Damon Motorcycles, an electric, vehicle. I know around the world, two-wheeled vehicles are used for major transportation much more than four-wheeled vehicles. And so what fascinated me about that story was the need to basically get off fossil fuels to create an electric option for for people to get off fossil fuels, but also in a high performance manner. It has a lot of intelligence and technology, and he had several prior mobility and automotive ventures that he was successful at. But what fascinated me was that before that he was a snowboarder, and when you're a snowboarder or you're an extreme athlete and you have that commitment and that grit and all the things that kind of make you that Olympic ironclad heroine, there's a lot of characteristics of an entrepreneur and an athlete in terms of your ability to just go for it and to not just train but to cross the finish line.
I think you must be loaded with full of wisdom, having had a lot of conversation with those visionaries, and also you were part of 500 companies, and you said about 12 IPOs. So I think there is a lot that has happened, and there is a lot that went into what into becoming what and who you are, right? So I'm now curious to understand your success mantra. Please share with our audience the top 3 things that have contributed to your success so far.
Well, I would say persistence. Persistence, and it's like anything is being consistent. So every day I actually start out with a list of things that I want to succeed. I have a list I make for the week, and then I kind of like power myself to say, okay, these are the things that I'm going to accomplish today. And sometimes you don't accomplish everything in one day, but it's still continuous, a commitment. The second, I think, is to constantly be, creative and problem solving. So we can't control the world, the aspects and the headlines of the news, people's behaviors, the weather, and other things. But what we can, control is how we respond to them. So agility, I think, is another key attribute that I think that I've learned extremely well over time, is to be agile to the marketplace, agile to circumstances. And in public relations, we often create what they call crisis prevention plans. I don't like I like the word crisis at all. I just call them, proactive. Proactive prevention plans so that we can actually be proactive. And I think the third, is to have fun. If you're not doing something that you love to do every day, then why do it? And so I feel very fortunate that I have still find a lot of fun in what I do. And I think that curiosity that I mentioned early on in the rapid fire is continuous. It's constant. It's just in my DNA.
Superb. And let's get into the core of today's conversation. It's about building authentic stories as an entrepreneur, right? So what do you believe makes a story authentic, especially in the context of entrepreneurship? And why is it crucial for entrepreneurs to craft their authentic narratives?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that is great is oftentimes people don't even know what their story is. They come to me and they start telling me about their product, and it doesn't make a difference what the product is. It's a consumer electronics product. It's a major small something in your pocket, something that goes in your home, or it's something that's going to be in the air or on the ground. They typically start talking about the solution. And to me, what is really exciting about before you get to the solution is the why. Like, why are you bringing this solution to market? So again, going back to what I call the discovery process is who you are, what do you do, how do you do it? What makes you relevant in solving the problem? So setting up the problem and what it is. So if the problem is that you want to make agriculture more sustainable, the big question is why? And so tell me why it's not currently sustainable. Excuse me, in terms of climate change and fossil fuels and chemicals and all those things it could be. Second is, why did you decide to be kind of bold and fearless to take this on? Why did you leave your corporate job? And why did you leave your security that you might have had, in tenure with a company? Or what are your friends and family going to say, right? And then the next part is really what I call think out of the box. Like, what is your big think out of the box idea? So it's not, again, the product, it's your approach to that product, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then listen to the market. And then it's really about what I call the conversation over a napkin is if you're going to bring something brand new to the market, something new to the market, then you need to understand the problem you're solving in the category very well. So yesterday, for example, I spoke to three totally different type of entrepreneurs. I spoke to somebody who has brought in about 6 different products and companies to market, very seasoned, and knows exactly immediately that he called me. I worked with him 3 companies, and he called me to say, help me tell my story. Help me figure out what my story is. The second one was somebody who's had a product in the market for a while, and the story's not working. Problem I found immediately, and when he was telling me the story, is that he was leading with the problem, and he was leading with the solution, not with the problem. And the problem was the purification of water, and the purification of water in around not in North America, but around the world, and how water, our most precious resource, should be available in the 21st century in a clean, purified way. But he was leading with the filter process and everything, which people aren't going to immediately understand. And the third company that I spoke to was a brand new entrepreneur who's never brought a product to market and just was stuck and didn't know where to start. And so it's my job is to, the same way if you were going to meet with a chef and you say, wow, that's a really fabulous dish, and deconstruct the recipe. Now, when I cook, I don't use recipes. I just kind of throw ingredients together and kind of have a smell and taste for it. And it's very similar to storytelling, is that I have a process that I place, but it's really my job to help you find the ingredients to that recipe.
Quite interesting. And now let's talk about the examples of entrepreneurs or startups that have effectively communicated their authentic stories, and how did it impact their success?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Lightscope Robotics. I started working with them when they were a pre-seed company. They went through an IPO last year. So it's exciting to see a company to go from inception to like market a category leader and for an IPO. And then Damon Motors is another one I mentioned, was like helping them raise their visibility and their fundraising all the way into preparation into their next phase, which is the momentum and bringing their product to market. Helping that company get secure close to 100 million in orders, and the product hasn't shipped yet. The story is an extremely powerful story to tell. It's a story not about a motorcycle. It's a story about how infrastructure and the world would benefit by having less fossil fuels on the road. Another one I'm so excited about is in the category of agritech, a Monarch tractor, which is a autonomous EV tractor. The founder is originally from India. He has been in the automotive and mobility engineering space for a number of years, and he called me and asked me if I knew somebody that could help him bring his tractor to market. And when he called to tell me it was a tractor, I was really curious because I grew up in an agriculture community, as I mentioned. I was in 4-H. I rode a tractor when I was a kid in my grandfather's, property. And I got my master's thesis in the democratization of the Farm Workers Union. And for the first time in my entire career, I actually had a place that I could actually use that knowledge and that wisdom, and it was with bringing this tractor to market. And it was more a story about a EV tractor, an autonomous EV tractor. It was about the impact in which the tractor could make on seed to table in agriculture and communities, and the food that we eat, that we gather around, and that we share with our families and friends. How is our farmers able to make more economic impact and more predictability into their crops? And farming used to be a very admired avocation, and over the years, it's like perception is you're these very large commercial farms, or you're like a weekend gardener farmer, right? And there are many small, small to mid-sized micro farms that benefit, from innovation and technology. And so one of the things that I've seen over the years with all these conversations is that smart technology is in our homes. It's in our thermostats. It's on our phones. It's in our TVs. It's in our cars. It's, on tractors now. It's in, it impacts Yes, in so many ways. The intersection of innovation and technologies. When I started my business, heavy, heavy security, enterprise data center, and then that evolved into microsizing things into handheld devices and things in our pocket. And so I think one of the things about innovation and technology that excites me is the enablement. If
Mhm.
technology isn't enabling us to do something better,
Mhm.
to make, be more prolific, to the accessibility of digital content. I'm not talking about TikTok for entertainment. I'm talking about education, mobile phones, and content and news content, to be informed, online classes and university distance learning and those things, internet connections to your friends and family. Those are things that I think I see value when in technology. When I see what's happening now, which is artificial intelligence is a super demand, the strain and the demand that and the energy that's being wasted because people want more access to artificial intelligence and TikTok and all this entertainment stuff. The carbon footprint problem is a huge problem. So
Yeah.
there's a yin and a yang in technology, and
Mm.
I look at both because I need to understand both. There's a fabulous show on Netflix called History 101, and it
Mhm.
takes you through many technologies. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I'll
Yeah,
probably check it out.
it's
History 101. Mhm.
yeah, it talks about GPS. It talks about
Mm.
new, smartphones and many devices that we're all used to today, but the inception and where they originally came from. And there were some surprises in there for me too. But if we
Mm.
don't question technology and we don't question, then we have two choices.
Mhm.
You're either going to adapt or you're
Mm.
going to adopt, and you have to decide which one you're going to do.
Mhm. Yeah. Great insights. I think that tractors company must be Monarch Tractors, or I don't recall the name as such, but it is my friend's friend who is working on that. I heard
Nice.
about it a couple of years ago, and I think that guy is doing really awesome. And now let's move ahead and talk about the technological advancement and automation. Given the pace at which it is happening, how can entrepreneurs ensure they retain the human factor in their ventures as well as storytelling? And the reason for this question is very simple. Nowadays we are seeing a lot of people leveraging chat gpts and all the generative ai tools in order to build social media posts, right? And we are not able to decide which one is authentic versus which one is artificially created. So in this age, how can the entrepreneurs retain the human factor?
Yeah, well, I'm an advocate of using AI
Mhm.
tools to
Mhm.
help, augment and expedite things.
Yeah.
It can't replace cognitive thinking, and it can't replace, common sense. So the fact that you and I are having a conversation, and I can see you, and I know you're not an avatar, and that you are an actual human, and if something were to happen, such as, I don't know, cloudy with a chance of it fell from the sky, you're gonna react and move a certain way, right? Likewise, if a bunch of pigeons flew over my head, I can get a duck, right? Um, I work with a lot of robotics companies, and I work with a lot of deep learning companies, and I think one of the things that we always strive in our demonstration of the product is to show human factor. So I work with a company called Skyline Robotics, and Skyline Robotics is a window washing robotics company. A robot will actually go up on the scaffolding platform, come down from the top of the building, and wash skyscrapers. That's a very dirty business. Dirty in terms
Mm.
of windows. It has a lot of safety issues, and window washers aren't necessarily trained. You have generations of window washers that are actually, from grandfather to son to the next. The Zennials and the Millennials are not taking these jobs. And around the world, if you look at the stats, there's risk in the job, high risk. And so what the company is trying to do is to bring new automation to automate the window washing, but it does require an operator. So now the window, once upon a time window washer, can actually now become the operator. And so it's a companionship, it's a partnership, it's not a replacement. And I think that's what we need to teach our kids as well. The same way as we saw the onset of video games and in having fun and engaging, is that we should question who is on the other side as it relates to be seen in social media. And there's always like a social, like a security risk or breach or some social negative component of any of these things when they're brought. But we need to ask, question what type of, when it comes to chatbot, how do I use chat? Artificial intelligence in the wrong hands could be extremely dangerous. You don't want it in the hands of criminals and the criminal activities. But I mentioned Nightscope Robotics, a company like that, and many companies are now looking at AI. How do we actually offset the AI component? So I think we should question, and I think that we should use the tools that fit our business or personal lifestyle. So for me, I play around with chatbot and a couple of the other AI content tools. I don't use them to write. I'm not using them to write my book. I'm not using them for my day-to-day client content work, but it's good for research. I find great benefits in using these tools for research or for just content or giving me a creative push.
Yeah, great. And great insights there. And we have had incredible conversations so far, Donna. And it's time to add some more excitement and some more spice. So with your consent, I'll kick off the second rapid fire round, which is a series of intriguing questions, and probably you can answer them crisply. If you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so here comes my first question. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Hire me. No, I think in all seriousness, I really think it depends on where the billboard is, but I think a message the whole world needs to hear right now is, I don't know, just be nice.
Be nice. Wow. And between invisibility versus super strength, which one would you choose?
Oh, super strength.
And what would you do with that?
You want to know what my super strength would be?
No. Okay, no. I said, what would you do with that super strength? What
would I do with my super set?
Yes.
Wow. I have a wire fox terrier, and she smells so good, and she can like anything, rabbits and squirrels and all that stuff. I think I would just snoop out, my curiosity again, and just find some great stories.
Interesting one. And Donna, can you describe yourself in just one word?
Unique.
Oh, awesome. And what's the first thing that you notice in someone when you meet for the first time?
Wow. Probably their eye contact.
Okay, here comes the next bullet. What is the best gift that you have ever received?
It's not that you can buy, but I think it's been the freedom to be in a profession that has allowed me to travel to 80 countries.
Wow.
And to continuously work and create and have fun and also mentor the next generation.
Wow. So impressive. And last one for the rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you'd like to see or invent yourself, Donna?
I want a flying car.
Yeah.
I have a private license to fly planes. I don't get to fly as much as I'd like to, and I love to drive. So just convert them together. I know it's a process. Some people have attempted to do it, but it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, but it will be a reality very soon, and I wish our reality comes soon. And with that, let's flip back to the mainstream. And what will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their careers?
Keep an open mind. That your first job is not your last job.
Wow.
And risk, challenge, reward.
Risk, challenge.
As I tell my I've always told my kids, make smart and safe decisions. But at the same time, don't be so predictable in sense of, having adventure. And one of the reasons I've traveled so much is I actually wanted to experience different cultures and communities and language and food and knowledge. And so that continuous thirst and quest, I think, is something that an entrepreneur doesn't step out of the box unless they're thirsty for something. They're seeking something.
Wow. Great nuggets of wisdom out there. And how's your experience being hosted on the Guiding Voice platform?
I think that we can start our own a third book together in collaboration. You have one book and a second book in the works, and I have one. I need to be just more disciplined in finishing. But I think the content that you provide the listeners is definitely wisdom to inspire and to help us thrive. And I think those are two things that we should continuously do is and you asked me a question, I said unique, and I think the word I probably should have used was authentic. Be authentically you. That your thumbprint in your individuality and who you are is why people come back and listen to your show. Why my clients come to me, retread sometimes and work with me a second or third time or refer me. Is that eventually, we're starting out in your career, know what that uniqueness is or what that it factor that you bring. But as you mature and cultivate it over time, it will, that season and that secret recipe, ingredient will shine.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. And I really appreciate all the amazing insights that you have shared in today's conversation. And I would love to have you once again part of this show in future. Thank you for your time and all the amazing insights, Donna. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
And it was a pleasure hosting you. Thank you. So, folks, that was our episode with Donna Loughlin. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. In case if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast from wherever you have tuned in, because subscribing keeps you updated on new episodes. Also, if you have enjoyed this conversation and found it useful, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who would also like the Guiding Voice. So spread the knowledge and help others also grow just like you. And it helps us create more content for you and our community. So now let's cruise into the trivia segment of today's episode. Having had great conversation about Donna, who has been interacting with great visionaries, so I thought I would present you a few facts related to visionaries of all time. So here comes the first one. It is Tim Berners-Lee's visionary creation of the World Wide Web, the WWW, has revolutionized the communication and also information access globally. It has transformed the way we live, work, and also interact with the technology. And the second one is about Thomas Alva Edison. He was a prolific inventor who held over 1,000 patents, and his vision led to groundbreaking inventions such as the electric bulb and also the phonograph. And third one is about Ada Lovelace. She's considered the world's first computer programmer. She had a visionary understanding of Charles Babbage's analytical engine and wrote algorithms for it in the mid 1800s. So likewise, if you have come across any visionary, please share about them in the form of comments if you are watching it on YouTube, or else you can also leave the comments on social media wherever you have found this episode. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome community. And folks, we would love to hear from you. Do not hesitate to share your ideas and feedback through our vibrant social media platforms, or you can also email us at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com, and let's create content that resonates with you. I'm your host Naveen Samala, a lifelong learner, and my goal is to have impactful conversations that improve not only your life but also your career. So stay connected as we journey together, and until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember, the future holds great things because the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care.